guys? Coach Nick Gloff here with Team Camp Jansen, and I'm here directly post pull training session at 6 weeks and 6 days out. So call this one 7 weeks out prep update. So for where we're at right now, by my own and Matt's assessment, we got a long way to go. So as far as time goes, we're a little bit light on time, but we are pretty heavy in how much work needs to be done between now and December 5th, show day. So we've made a move with cardio, and we've made a move changing with the diet. So moving forward, the training is going to stay just about the same. I have control over my own training, so I'm making the adjustments to my training as needed. The most recent changes that I've been making has been dropping total volume down. So for a while I was trying to push, because my strength wasn't where exactly I wanted it to be, I was trying to get the output that I needed from doing a little bit extra volume in the work that I was doing, almost to try and equal out the intensity that I couldn't create. But I've gotten to the point now where my top end strength is starting to come back full force, and on most things I'm in a good place again with my strength at this point. So that's not as much an issue now. I don't need to pile on as much volume, and with the calorie base and the amount of cardio and the amount of activity and everything, my performance and recoverability is a limited resource. So being that it's a limited resource and I'm not in a place that I'm going to be putting on tissue, I mean, it's possible, it's a first prep. I'm not going to go into that whole topic. That's a whole other thing that I could talk about for way too long, and I'm not going to belabor the point. Anyway, I'm not really in a place that I'm going to be putting on any tissue because the calorie deficit is pretty extreme, as is the total output that I'm creating over the week. So adding in more total volume isn't really going to do much for me, because I'm able to hit the intensity markers that I'm looking for in my training sessions almost every time, as long as sleep was good, as long as everything else kind of stayed in good order. Most things hinge on my sleep. So if my sleep is good, my performance is pretty good, my recovery is pretty good, and I can continue on moving with my set structure of training. My intensity can get hit on most of the sets that I do, and whether or not it feels good to be able to do it, I can still do it, so that's what I do. Now, having more sets added to it as more volume isn't really going to help me at this point, because I'm not in a place that I'm going to be putting on any tissue. So the name of the game is continuing to push my performance, so that as my energy, my recoverability becomes more and more limited, as long as I can keep my performance up and my strength up, and I'm not doing anything that's, just doing some crazy setup with my training so that I can almost like peak myself, so that I can continue to get better strength while kind of like hiding the fact that I'm losing my total ability. As long as I'm not doing anything crazy, and everything stays pretty much in line and performance keeps on going on a flat line or a slight inclined trajectory and getting better, then I'm going to end up, no matter what else happens, I'm going to end up on stage with just as much tissue as I had when I started this diet. And that is the goal. So with my training right now, I'm looking towards possibly eliminating or switching out some compound movements on my leg day, which is the major thing that's a concern at the moment, because my legs is usually something that I don't have a problem with keeping my strength up or keeping my performance ability on. It's always been something that I can dig through and I can keep on pushing performance no matter what the case. But I start to get signs when I'm a little bit under recovered and I'm gaining some cumulative fatigue through sessions, that not so much that the strength isn't there, but the patterns don't feel quite right, so I don't feel like I'm grooved, and I don't feel like my timing is perfect, and just the little details, little nuances, the little like subjective feel type things about my movements, I start to lose them. And I've been starting to get that specifically on my sumo hack squat day. So now that I've been getting that for a couple of sessions consecutively, that I've had my hack was on an upward trajectory for a bit, and then I peaked it off, and it was a really, really high peak compared to what my previous performances were on it. And then it started to taper back down, and it's starting to level. So while the sumo is the first exercise on that leg day, that is still going up in an upward trajectory, but my hack as a secondary is starting to go down, and the strength is still there. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel quite as safe. Kind of feels like my body doesn't want to let me do it. So being that that's the case, I'm going to have to change the structure on my leg days a little bit and play around with what I'm doing with my bigger compound movements. But as far as that's concerned, that change hasn't been finalized as far as I'm concerned yet. So that's going to take a little bit more thought on my part. Everything else with my push and my pull days, because my split is a legs pull push in that order with a double rotation and a 2 on 1 off cycle. So as far as everything else is concerned, everything else can stay exactly the way it is. I haven't had any of those same issues, aside from having some difficulty on some days with my bent over row and sometimes with my V-bar barbell row. But that's more so just cumulative fatigue from multiple different hinging patterns across the week as opposed to anything else. And even then, strength is continuing to go up. So I'm not really all that concerned with changing things around for that. For where my head is at, I think if I switch some things around with the structure for leg day, then I'm going to have a little bit left in the tank for my performance on those other pull days, considering especially that they're directly following the leg day. So those things will probably iron themselves out with a small adjustment on my leg days. Moving on from training, the cardio adjustments that we've made. Now, prior to this week, I was doing an hour on the bike fasted every morning, and I was doing 30 minutes of intervals, 1 minute on for sprint and 1 minute off resting pace for a half an hour, and that's prior to my last meal of the day. And then 7,000 steps is the minimum quota. Now it is an hour fasted in the morning on the bike, and then 45 minutes of steady state. So both the AM and the PM cardio is steady state now, and it's 45 minutes PM cardio, and steps are staying at about 7,000 as the bare minimum quota. But like I said in the last installment of this prep update, that I already have, for the entirety of this prep period, had a higher average than 7,000 steps every day. So I'm continuing to stay at around between like 10 and 13,000 steps a day, which has been my normal since the very beginning of this prep period. So that's going to stay where that is leveled at, and that cardio change is going to stay the way it is, at least until the next update, which is going to be tomorrow. I send pictures in to Matt, and I'll have another update from him as to what the next plan is and what the adjustments are going to be. As far as the diet goes, we are down a little bit more. So the rough average of the calories that I was having this prior week was about 1,800 a day, and it's not a diet structure where it's like tiered, so it's not a low day, medium, high day, or low day, high day type thing. It's been a consistent, this is the meal plan, you eat this every day type of a setup, and then as updates roll through and Matt sees it necessary to try and push things up, then he'll give me a high day or 2 high days or whatever it is that he dictates to be the plan at the time. This previous week, we did try to push up into a high day where we had, from the normal diet, I have 2 meals really that have a carb amount in it, which was, if I remember correctly, 110 grams cooked white rice in meal 2, and then 40 grams cream of rice as the post-workout, and then that I do believe is it. Yes, that I do believe is it. Now it's down to 70 grams of carbs, or 70 grams of white rice. I don't know, my brain is not there. Directly post-training, not the greatest time to make a prep update video, as so we found at this point. Anyway, so we're down to 70 grams of white rice in the meals that did have white rice in it, and we're moving from just chicken as a meat source, and we're starting to tier it into adding a little bit of whitefish and having a little bit of 96.4 ground beef as a final meal of the day, and then taking out the eggs that I had in my first meal of the day. So there's been a couple of changes, and overall what it really boils down to is carbs are lower, fats are lower, protein's just about the same. So we're down probably, I think, another 150 to 200 calories from where it was this past week. And that is where we are at. So we're trying to really push it. We're trying to drive into really the hardest deficit that I can tolerate. And basically for where I'm at, I need it. I need to be pushed right now. My body has been not responsive to what we want it to do for most of this prep already. So, and that's just being completely honest and candid on this video, that things have not gone entirely to plan throughout this process, and for whatever reason my body really just hasn't been doing what it is that we would expect it to do, or what we really want it to do with the select adjustments that we have made. So being that I've been a little bit unpredictable, even with consistency being there, there's been just some weird variables, some curveballs that have been thrown in and out here and there, really for the past consecutive 4-ish weeks, that things have been kind of topsy-turvy. And so at this point now, a previous issue that we had and is not completely dissipated is water. I've had some water deposition that's been sitting on my legs and then into my midsection. And for the most part, the problem on my legs has dissipated, but I do still have a little bit that sits on my torso. But at this point, at 6 weeks and 6 days out as I'm recording this, we don't have the luxury of time to be worried about water as a thing. So for the most part, the problem has been taken care of, so it's not going to be an issue. However, we're at crunch time. So body fat needs to come off, and it needs to come off quick. So our main concern right now is just dig and do exactly what needs to be done, and go as hard as we possibly can do it without the wheels completely falling off, so that we can make it all the way to December 5th and be on stage in shape. And really, that's the only thing that matters right now. It doesn't matter how it feels. It doesn't really matter how it looks on the day-to-day right now. It's just the way it is. So this is my first prep. Whether or not you guys watching really knew that, this is my first prep, and so there's going to be some stories that I'm going to have to tell about this prep later on, and everybody that's gone through one themselves, their first one's usually a doozy. So this is going to be something that I'm going to look back on, and I'm going to have a lot of probably some fond and some not so fond memories of, for sure. But it's going to be an experience just like a lot of experiences that I've gone through in the past that have helped, just because of the sheer enormity of the task in front of me and the obstacles that have been put into place in front of me as I keep walking. There's going to be a lot of self-development that's going to have to happen between now and show day for me to be able to survive this and make this happen, and to show up the way that I want to show up, and for me to be a functioning human being while being there. So there is a lot on the plate. There is, well, metaphorically at least, and there's a lot of work to be done. So as of right now, we're looking at a tall task, but it's nothing that I can't handle, and it's something that I'm taking on hour by hour basis, meal by meal basis, day by day, and just figuring out as it goes. Matt and I are working our hardest to try and make sure that everything goes as smoothly as possible. And although we've had some rough times, some jagged edges to try and smooth over, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. It's going to be taxing. It's not gonna be easy, but prep's never easy. So this is something that I've been looking forward to for years now. This has been something that I've had on the checklist of to-dos for as long as I can remember, and it's go time. And I'm ready for this. And as much as right now it's kind of a game in my own head, trying to think about where it is that I'm gonna land and whether or not I can make it and what needs to be done between now and then, all these things are all distractions in my head right now. And really what it boils down to is just listening, doing what I'm told, giving it everything that I've got, and just showing up every day, minute by minute, hour by hour. It doesn't matter how tough it might be on any given day, as long as I show up and I do all the things that I need to be doing, I'm gonna make it. And that's the long and short. And that's the only thing that I really have the thought space to be able to hold on to, other than one other thing that I will cap this off with and leave it on, because this is something that maybe if you personally right now are going through your first prep or a prep, or you're going through some hard times yourself right now, something that I have that I heard a long time ago, and I don't even remember exactly who from, but every time it feels like it's impossible and there's too big of an obstacle ahead of me and I just don't know what to do, and you just have the helpless feeling wash over you, I just think if you can't, you must. And just repeat it to myself over and over and over and over again. If you can't, you must. If you can't, you must. And I say it out loud, and I make sure that I hear it, and I'm listening to myself. There's nothing more powerful than that. If you can't, you must. And that resonates with me because it's right now, imagining being on stage is something that I can't fully do because I've never been there. I can't imagine myself on the stage, so I must. I can't imagine all the work that needs to be done, but I have to do it. I must do it. That's it. That's the long and short. Everything that needs to happen between now and then, even when the doubt creeps in, if you can't, you must. And every day I show up and I do the work. Every day I get on the bike in the morning. Every day I show up to training. Lightheaded, tired, woozy, feeling weak, feeling down, feeling angry or irritated, whatever it is, I show up. I get myself focused. I get through my sessions. I do every set that I planned. I beat the logbook. I eat the meals. I do my PM cardio. I go to bed. I wake up. I do it all over again. If you can't, you must. And if you must, take it minute by minute. Take it hour by hour. Because the time will pass regardless. You can be sure of that. The time will pass regardless. But what you do with that time is up to you. And right now, for me, I know my time is limited. So I got a date. I got a date on December 5th that I need to meet. Time is limited. So every minute counts. Every hour counts. Every day, every minute on the bike, every step I take, every bite of food, it all counts. Every day. All right, so that's enough of all that. That's enough of me being serious. So that's it for my prep update with 7 weeks roughly, 6 weeks and 6 days out. This is it for me, Nick, Coach Nick with Team Camp Jansen, and I hope that everybody has been up to date with everything else that's been going on with Camp Jansen right now. Nadia is also going through her prep. Matt Burzacott is doing some cool stuff with his videos and doing his forums and doing stuff on IGTV, making videos. And him and Matt Jansen is also putting out videos that they did together as a series on the YouTube channel and here on Team Camp Jansen. So make sure to keep up to date with everybody else's stuff and be ready next week to see a 6 weeks out update of where we're at.